In the deepest reaches of Southeast Asia, hidden beneath a suffocating blanket of green, lies a secret: the remains of one of the largest, most sophisticated cities ever built by humankind. This is not a city lost to myth, nor one erased by the violent hands of war. It was simply forgotten, a sprawling metropolis, swallowed by the jungle, waiting centuries to be found. This was Angkor, the magnificent heart of the Khmer Empire. Our story begins over 1,000 years ago. Between the 9th and 15th centuries, a powerful civilization rose from the fertile plains of modern-day Cambodia. This was the Khmer Empire, a dominant force that shaped the destiny of Southeast Asia. Its rulers were more than kings. They were Devarajas, or god kings, who channeled the power of the divine. They didn't just build monuments to display their might, they built them for eternity. At its zenith, the capital city of Angkor was a wonder of the world. With a population nearing 1 million people, it dwarfed contemporary cities like London or Paris. Its influence stretched across thousands of square miles, a testament to its military, cultural, and spiritual power. The empire was born from the vision of its founder, Jayavarman II, who in 802 AD declared himself a universal monarch, breaking free from the distant Javanese court and uniting the Khmer people under a single banner. From this foundation, a dynasty of ambitious builders and divine rulers would create a legacy etched in stone. At the center of this empire stands its most breathtaking achievement, Angkor Wat. This is no mere temple. It is a stone-carved model of the cosmos, a physical representation of the universe. Its 5 central towers symbolize the peaks of Mount Meru, the mythical home of the gods in Hindu belief, while the vast moat surrounding it represents the cosmic ocean. Every detail is deliberate, every measurement precise. The temple's perfect symmetry and its astronomical alignments, particularly with the rising sun during the equinoxes, reveal a knowledge of science and architecture that is simply astounding. Walking through its galleries is like reading an epic poem. Over a mile of intricate bas-reliefs wrap around the temple walls, depicting legendary battles from Hindu epics and celebrating the military triumphs of its builder, King Suryavarman II. He dedicated this monumental structure to the god Vishnu, intending for it to serve not only as a temple but as his own final resting place, a gateway to the afterlife. Its sheer scale and complexity continue to baffle engineers and historians. A structure so vast, it remains the largest religious monument on the planet. But the true genius of the Khmer Empire, the secret to its endurance, wasn't carved in stone. It flowed through water. Angkor's real power source was its revolutionary system of water management. The Khmer were masters of hydraulic engineering. They constructed a vast and intricate network of canals, dikes, and massive reservoirs, known as bares. These man-made lakes, some several miles long, were technological marvels. They captured the torrential monsoon rains, storing water for the long dry seasons. This system didn't just prevent catastrophic floods and devastating droughts. It allowed for multiple rice harvests a year, sustaining a massive population. It was an artificial landscape engineered on a scale almost unimaginable for the pre-industrial world, allowing a city to thrive in a challenging climate. The water system was the empire's lifeblood, feeding millions and fueling its expansion for centuries. The spiritual landscape of Angkor was as dynamic as its physical one. The empire was founded on Hindu beliefs, with kings identifying themselves with gods like Shiva and Vishnu. The temples they built were glorious homes for these deities on earth. But over time, new ideas arrived. Buddhism began to spread, offering a different path to enlightenment. Kings like Jayavarman VII, one of Angkor's most prolific builders, embraced Mahayana Buddhism. He transformed the state religion, constructing the iconic Bayon Temple with its serene, smiling stone faces, believed to be a representation of both the Bodhisattva of compassion and the king himself. This shift was not always smooth. Temples were repurposed, statues were altered, and ideological tensions grew. Each change in belief rippled through the empire's power structure, contributing to a slow internal transformation that would eventually weaken its foundations. The end of Angkor was not a dramatic, singular event. There was no great battle that leveled the city, no single catastrophe. It was a slow, agonizing decline, a death by 1,000 cuts. The very system that gave Angkor life, its water network, may have contributed to its demise. Some theories suggest that decades of elaborate and ever-expanding construction put an unsustainable strain on the environment. Prolonged droughts, linked to climate change, were followed by intense monsoons that the over-engineered and aging hydraulic system could no longer manage. As the water network failed, so did the rice harvests. Political instability, internal power struggles, and external pressures from rival kingdoms like Ayutthaya in Siam further weakened the empire. Slowly, inexorably, the city began to empty. People abandoned the urban core, seeking more fertile lands. The world's greatest metropolis was gradually, quietly, reclaimed by the jungle. For centuries, Angkor's story was lost, its true scale a mystery. European explorers who stumbled upon the ruins saw only the magnificent temples, believing them to be isolated ceremonial centers. They couldn't imagine the sprawling city that once surrounded them. It wasn't until the 21st century that the full truth was revealed. Using LiDAR, a revolutionary laser scanning technology, archaeologists were able to peer through the dense jungle canopy. What they found was breathtaking. The scans revealed a vast hidden cityscape, an urban grid of roads, canals, houses, and gardens stretching for hundreds of square miles. Angkor was not just a collection of temples. It was a low-density, dispersed megacity, one of the most extensive urban complexes of the pre-industrial world. Technology finally confirmed what the stones had hinted at all along, the sheer, unimaginable scale of the Khmer civilization. The story of Angkor is a powerful echo from the past, a warning that resonates even today. The Khmer Empire rose by mastering nature, by bending the very landscape to its will. But in the end, it was a battle they could not win. The fall of Angkor teaches us a timeless lesson about the delicate balance between human ambition and the natural world. It reminds us that even the most powerful and sophisticated civilizations are ultimately fragile, dependent on the environment that sustains them. When that balance is lost, even the greatest of empires can crumble, their magnificent cities falling silent, leaving only stone whispers in the jungle. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from our World Civilizations series.